Welcome to Sam's Antique Motors. You got Sam Wilson here. Got the trusty Shackleton, the shop dog, Resto-Rat shop dog, sleep at the wheel down here on the ground helping me, sort of. And today I'm going to tackle putting this steering column back together out of this 59 NAPCO. Took it apart a few days ago, sandblasted everything, painted the parts back in the charcoal gray color they're supposed to be. And I took all the nuts and bolts and bead blasted them, and I parkerized those so they're all nice and black, kind of like they're supposed to. And so today I'm going to put this thing back together. I am fortuitous enough to have what I believe is an original shop manual. This is actually a 1958 shop manual, but 59 didn't really have a shop manual. They just had a supplement to the 58. So I have used that a little bit to sort this out. And the first thing I'm going to do, I did go in and make some gaskets. So the gaskets were toast. I was not able to find any parts, suppliers that supplied rebuild stuff for this. So I've made use with what I have, which is all in good shape. Shaft's not worn, bearings are fine. So good to go. So the sort of first thing to do is I took the worm nut apart and took all the bearings out, cleaned all this, got it all bead blasted back together. So so we should be good to go. First thing to do is to put this packing nut back on this shaft, and the manual said to just slide this over the shaft, and then I've counted out equal numbers of balls that go in this little nut. It says to use 30, but I have 29 and 29, and I'm a little skeptical that I'm going to even be able to get the 29 in there. First thing to do is to drop these, line this little nut up with the gear. I'll take a little side video here and show you kind of how that thing lays out. If you look right down in there, you can see that this is sort of lined up with these holes. And it said you want the thin part of this nut. This nut has a thick part, thin part, and a thick part. Said you wanted this nut to the left of the steering wheel. So if the steering wheel's down there, that would be to the left. So with that, I'm going to line this thing up kind of as far down to the end as possible, and just drop these little balls down in this hole. And then you got to just sort of spin this thing a little bit to work them down in there. Let's see, I think I had 15 of them. That's not right. 15, 16, 17, 18 of them in each ball circuit. There's 2 circuits here. And like I say, if you just kind of work this shaft, these balls go down in this little groove. A whole bunch of them here. And as they come around, they start filling up to the other side. So now I've got all of these little balls down in there. And so I've got those in and balanced. Then I've taken the remainder of these little balls and put them in these little ball retainers in the handy dandy. It says there's an exact number of these. So we're going to see if these actually go down in there, but it said to fill this up. Kind of made sure that the ends of this aren't boogered up, and then said to put just a dab of grease on the end of this to keep these balls in where they go, which is probably going to be easier said than done. One of them's already popped out. All right. Now, assuming those will stay in there long enough for me to flip this over, push it down in this circuit. Bingo. one done. So now I'm going to just do the same thing on the next one. Again, sort of starting with the nut down at one end here. Whoops, dropped the ball. Hope I don't wake up the shop dog. Would be handy to do this on a nice clean floor, which fortunately I sort of have. Because as you see, if you drop these little balls, it's going to be hard to find them. I was pretty careful when I took this thing apart to make sure I captured all the balls. And you may have to kind of push these little balls down in there to get them to go down in the circuit where they're supposed to go, which I've done. And then I'm going to put this other little ball, I don't know what you actually call this thing. Let me refer to the supplement. Call these the ball guides. So I'm going to put the ball guides back together here. Where are these? Kind of a bit of a juggling act to get those down in there where they're supposed to be. Gotta be kind of right at the top. Okay, and we'll put me a little dab of grease in there with the hopes of holding those babies in place again. Boom. So now I got these two guides packed in there, and there's a little guide clip with a screw and a lock washer that goes down on there and holds those babies in place. Again, I cleaned all that stuff up. So let me give me a screwdriver real quick. Okay, got that secured. So now that steering gear slides on there nicely. Perfect. So the next thing to do is to slide this up in there, and we need to make sure that I have the horn, I have a new horn upper bearing. Other one was just a tad bit gritty, and I didn't really like that one, so we're gonna feed this wire down through here first. Maybe. Yep. Really don't see any particular reason why I can't go ahead and push that on in there. It's just a little brass. It's got a bearing in there, brass with a rubber piece around here that goes in there and tightens up and holds all that. So I think what I'm gonna do is just put me a little grease on this bearing here. This is gonna get lube on the inside of it. Once you put gear oil, I have to find out what kind of gear oil actually goes in this thing, but I'm gonna go ahead and kind of put a little on here just for good measure. And it's gonna go this way. keep that shaft relatively clean. Okay. And this gear obviously goes where the teeth point to the sector gear that's going to come in right through there. You have to take this screwdriver and lift this up just a hair. Beautiful. So that slides right in there like that. And then I think what I'm going to do is do the same thing with this one. Let's see. Looks like this sits in there. So I think the trick here is going to be to put this, took this big adjusting nut out of here. Can't be much further than about that. I'm going to put a little dab of grease in here as well. Let's see how successful I am getting that stuck on there. And we've got a gasket that I made earlier. Looks like it's just a pretty simple square gasket. I think I bought like 3/1000 13/1000 gasket material. All right, and I screwed that in, and then this has let's see, looks like I got 1, 2, 3 long ones. I got 3 short ones. I got 4 long ones and 3 short ones. So I'm going to put the 4 long ones on the 4-hole bolt. I'm going to return those back in there. I've got a video on the Highlander series that goes into pretty full length on how to parkerize these bolts. So I'm not going to redo that on this one just because you can go reference it on that one. But I got all these going back to the proper OEM finish. So chased all these threads, so these are nice and clean and go right in here. I'm actually probably going to pull these and put some gasket thread sealer on these because these actually pin it. No, actually they don't. No, there's no reason for thread sealant because these don't penetrate into that cavity. So that's all good to go. Give me a wrench here in a minute and tighten these up. But I got them just snugged up by hand right now. And I'm going to want to tighten this up, take all the lash out of that steering shaft, which is now there. And it has this big locking ring here. Can't really tell that there, yeah, there's a little bit. There's a flat side on this side and a round side on that. So I'm going to put the flat side of the gear, come back and adjust that a little further after the fact. The next thing is this has a little packing nut and a retainer, but that's just a packing nut. So I went down to my local Napa boys and they fixed me up with a seal they had in stock. That is a Napa SKF oil seal number 11055, and this seal is for this shaft and this diameter. So I've got my seal driver, so I'm going to come in here and just take this seal and put that seal in there. Kind of a trick from the old Model A restoration business, and that should take care of any leakage coming out of that gear sector. So the next thing is to drop this this gear in here, and the manual said that this lash adjustment should have about 2/1000 clearance in there. In my case, I had about 58/1000, which is fairly big. 58/1000 is getting to be about a 1/16 of an inch in size. So it says in the parts in the supplement, you can get a parts shim set to tighten that up. So in short, in lack thereof a shim set, I found went to my supply of stuff, and this is a brake hose copper washer. So this brake hose washer is 49 thousandths, 52 thousandths. So 52 thousandths put on this nut in combination gets this to this kind of 2/1000 clearance that they're looking for. So I think we got that that fixed up. And the next thing to do is to just drop this. It has a bushing in there, but I think this truck has about 39,000 original miles on it. I want to pull a Carfax and see if I can confirm that. But this shaft, from the non-wear surface to the wear surface, is about 0.003 thousandths out. So there's no discernible wear on this shaft, and the gears, you know, the teeth all look good. So so I didn't do anything with that other than clean it up well. And I think I'm going to put just a dab of grease in here until I get, just so it's got something to work on while it's doing its thing. And let's see, as this penetrates through there, I'm going to wrap a little grease right here where this kind of, I have some assembly lube, but I think this grease will be just fine as well. Yeah, there's a bushing on that end too, so I'll come back and put that. So I'm going to drop this sector gear down in there. Oh, and it looks like we've got a problem here. In spite of what the manual says, it looks like this gear has to be the other way. So so this has to go in at an angle, and that nut is on there backwards. So I'm gonna have to pull this back out and flip this thing around, rebuild this nut, flip this thing back around, so that gear will go in there. So the manual clearly says with the shaft on the bench, steering wheel to the left, put the thin side to you, but it's exactly opposite. So I'm gonna flip that around. Well, Shackleton the Resto-Rat shop dog was pretty enthusiastic until I had to redo that little ball nut. Just like rebuilding a spreadsheet that you forgot to save and lost, it takes a lot less time to do it the second time than it did the first time. So we're back in business here. I flipped the nut around. Now it's time to drop this little sector gear back in here. Assuming you kind of want to get that screwed to where it's more or less in the middle. And then we're going to drop this right down there through that new seal into that gear. Look at that. That's the way it's supposed to go. Now we got a nice tight seal over here, so that shouldn't leak any grease. And next thing to do is to drop this fresh gasket made over the top of this. Probably wouldn't hurt to put a little assembly lube down in there, particularly where that shaft's going to ride on this bushing. Well, I think there's a grease zerk that goes in there. Maybe not. But we're going to put a little grease on it anyway. And then it looks like we got to get our shimmed, I think that's, think that's called a thrust lash adjustment. And why is that not going in there? Oh, this has to be threaded in there. So you have to take a screwdriver Sometimes I find it's better to use the three-fingered side. Sometimes that lets you get a little closer, but in this case, I think it's better to go ahead and use the five-finger side, not the three-finger side, to put that in. Just helpful tip for those of you out there trying to do this on your own. And I'm going to grab a little thread sealant. A little thread sealant to put on these because these penetrate into that box, so that's going to be a potential place for leakage. Okay, you have the Permatex thread sealant, and keep in mind this is high performance thread sealant. It's a lot better than that low performance thread sealant that they sell. Same price, and it's, you know, clearly the high performance version of this. Okay. Wipe off some of that high performance thread sealant that got pushed out. And we got the lash adjustment nut that goes right on here. And the filler, which we'll put some filler in it, and that should do it. And now I need to tighten the lash up just a little bit on this, which I intentionally backed off so that you wouldn't put that bearing in a bind. I think we still got just a little bit. There it is. Okay, there you have it. All put back together, looking good. Got this nice charcoal color. I'm not sure, when I took this apart, this column was clearly painted this color. I couldn't really tell what the color was on the gear, but I really can't imagine them painting the gearbox in a factory and masking off the shaft to paint the gearbox black and the shaft gray. So we went back with a single color gray across the board, and then we're going to switch to black once we get into the get back into the drag link. So there you have it. See you next time.
Download the Resto-Rat app today to begin managing, tracking, and documenting your restoration project.